Hello and welcome back to Monster Talks. It is the end of the first month of 2026, which is fucking crazy. It's the end of January. Well, I'm filming this on the 30th. We still have one more day, but fuck it. One of my New Year's resolutions was to read a lot more books, and I always find it easy to read a lot of books in January because I always get gifted books in December. For Christmas, and then I'm like, let me read all of these right now. Also, a preface, I am currently unemployed. Seems like I'll be perpetually unemployed with my English literature degree. I've been spending my time reading books. Not always, a fucking lot of doom scrolling as well, let me tell you that. Could have definitely read more, but it's okay. And now I just want to talk and yap about the books that I've read this month and if I recommend them and tell you my thoughts. I have to put the literature degree to some use after all, so this is what I've chosen to do. My brother asked me for a list of books I wanted for Christmas and I said these three. And he got me all three of them, which I then proceeded to read in the first 2 weeks of January. So the first book is pretty famous. It's like one of those books that blew up on TikTok and everybody started recommending it. It's called I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, which first off, kudos to the cover. It's amazing. It's such a good cover. I love the colors in it and it has a lovely velvety material. I wrote my thoughts out here, so I'm just going to be glancing here to say what I think. So a brief summary of the book is that we have an unnamed character. She's our protagonist and she remains unnamed throughout the entire book. And basically it is a dystopian novel where there are 40 women trapped in a cage underground. They have no memory of how they got there, they don't understand why they are there, and all these women are middle-aged / elderly. Our protagonist is the only young girl in this cage. So they've been there for several years, they have lost track of how long they've been there, and men guard these cages and punish them if they act out or do anything that they're not allowed to. So that's a very interesting premise to a novel, and I thought it would be very like Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale, especially with this very provocative title, I Who Have Never Known Men. So I thought it would be a critique on gender and literally like something like Handmaid's Tale, where women are suppressed in society and it becomes extreme. Well, not even extreme, it's happening nowadays, but something like, I keep saying something like The Handmaid's Tale. So not to spoil the book, but the plot picks up when basically one day the sound goes off and they are able to escape the cage and explore this world. I don't think that spoils anything, but there you go. There's a brief synopsis of this novel. I think the writing style was really captivating. I read it in 2 days and I was really into it until I kept reading and then there was no answer to any questions. There was no deeper world building. The one theory in my head that I did have about women being subjugated in this dystopia, like it was going to be like a feminist novel, kind of fell flat because I based this theory solely on the fact that there were 40 women in this cage who were being guarded by men. So I thought, okay, they entrap women in this world because that's how they oppress them. Spoiler alert, when she discovers more cages when they're exploring the world outside the cage, they find a cage that has 40 men in it, and then they find several of these cages with men in it, which kind of shatters the whole theory because, okay, so women are not subjugated in this society, it was everyone, so then it's more of like a critique on class, but then the title kind of falls flat. I know it applies to the main protagonist because she was caged as a young girl, so she actually has never known men, but I just thought it would be more interesting, more in-depth critique on, women and sexism in society, but it didn't end up being like that, so it was slightly disappointing. There are so many unanswered questions. For example, why is she the only young girl who is in the cage? Why were they in the cage in the first place? What kind of world are they on? Because it's insinuated that it's not Earth because the landscape is very completely different. Also, she never comes across anyone ever after she escapes. What the hell, like, is this another planet? I understand that this could be the concept of the book, that it's all a big mystery and you're supposed to just, make your own interpretations once the book is finished, but I wasn't satisfied with that. Like, it was kind of annoying. Like, I would have loved to know more. I wish there was more world building and just more, basically. I just wanted more. That being said, I did really quickly and I did enjoy it. I would say it is still very well worth a read. Like, it's not a waste of time to read it, and I did really enjoy it. I read it super fast. It's just me reflecting after I finished the book and looking back and seeing things that I didn't like or that I wish were more explored. But I do recommend. I think it's well worth a read and I did enjoy it. So that is my review of I Who Have Never Known Men. 5 stars for the cover. The next book that I read was Just Kids by Patti Smith, which I know is very beloved and renowned, and I did absolutely love it. Again, the cover is 5 stars, chef's kiss. The premise of this is it's kind of like a biography exploring the life of Patti Smith and her best friend Robert Mcilveen. These are two famous people. So Patti Smith became a famous musician and Robert Mcilveen was a famous photographer, very established in the queer community back in the 70s and 80s, who tragically died of AIDS. This is like her autobiography, so she begins when she's a child, and I have to say that her writing style is phenomenal. Like, it's such, you know, like a literary, beautiful, introspective, reflective. I completely enjoyed how she wrote. Obviously, this is about two artists, and it is a snapshot of the 1970s, 80s, and 90s of New York, Brooklyn, Manhattan. They talk about famous places where artists congregated, like the Chelsea Hotel. It almost gave me like a feeling of FOMO that, I mean, I don't want to say that I'm an artist, but I do love to create, I love to read, I love to write, I love to film, you know, I'm into music. Not to be pretentious, but I would have loved to live in this kind of atmosphere of like creativity and artistry in New York, you know, it's such a bustling creative city. And also when I read books, I become very consumed by the world that they're describing. So like every book I read, I want to live that life, or I'm so inspired by it. So I remember reading this like late at night and then like waking up and writing in my journal, more art, create more art, consume more art. So it really did inspire me to become more creative, more artistic, because these two people, their whole life is a pursuit of art and creativity, which is so inspiring. And it really is like a rags to riches story, because Patti Smith talks about her upbringing and her childhood, and she was homeless in the streets of New York, you know, she did everything for this pursuit of art. Obviously, an important part of the novel is her relationship to Robert Mcilveen. He is like her lover, her best friend, her muse. They're kind of like each other's muses, and I found their relationship very fascinating. At first it was romantic, but then it became platonic, and they were always there to support each other, and they were kind of like holding each other accountable to make sure that they created more art. So it was a really fascinating relationship. Also throughout the book there are really cool images of them two in New York. Like, look how sick that image is. I found the second half a little bit harder to, I don't know, relate to maybe, because they're like becoming famous, and I just felt like every single line she was just listing off all these famous celebrities that I've never heard of back in the 80s, who like she would go to a gig and she'd hang out with them, and she would meet this guy and this guy would introduce her to this guy, and they'd go to a party of this guy, which I'm just like, okay, like it just kind of pulled me a bit out of the story, because I was like, I don't know who these people are, and I'm sure if you were really into the 80s and 90s art scene, you'd know these people, but it just felt like every line there was someone else who I didn't know, and it was just like, I get the point, okay, you're famous and you're going to all these parties, I get it. But apart from that, really enjoyed. I did end up talking to one of my good friends about it, and she said that the tone came off as slightly pretentious, which I could definitely see, especially in the second half. I did feel like it was edging on the verge of pretentiousness. I ended up looking up these two people because they were real people, so I listened to some of Patti Smith's songs and I really like them. Not all of her work is for me, but some of them I did enjoy. I think like her most famous pieces I did enjoy. And then I did look up Robert Mcilveen's photography, which I thought was like extremely provocative, and personally I didn't really understand it, but I can understand how he was a, you know, very established queer icon, especially back then. And actually Patti Smith herself says that she didn't get it either. Yeah, very sad that he tragically passed away. Loads of queer icons died in the 80s from the AIDS epidemic, which is, this is a reminder of it, and it's fucking devastating and very, very sad. I really liked her writing, and I think I will read some more of her books because she actually has quite a big discography. Do recommend. Read this book. Next up is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, which I've been meaning to read for years and years and years and years and years. I finally read it, and wow, just wow. I think it was my favorite book. So I think The Kite Runner is just an amazing portrayal of a morally grey, unlikable character who is the protagonist of this story. So this story follows two 12-year-old boys who are living in Afghanistan, and this is before the war, before 9/11, before the Taliban, before what we know as Afghanistan in this cultural zeitgeist of, you know, Islamic terrorism and the Taliban and this kind of view that the world has of Afghanistan. So this really depicted Afghanistan before then, and it was really interesting. Like, I've never seen Afghanistan depicted this way, so it was really cool learning about this culture and this country before it was riddled with war and devastation, basically. So the story is of two boys, Amir and Hassan, and it explores class conflict and racial discrimination in Afghanistan. I didn't even know, but there are two big distinctive ethnic groups in Afghanistan. One is the Hazaras. They have Asian features and they are descendant from the Mongolian Empire, correct me if I'm wrong, and they follow a different branch of Islam. Whereas the Pashtuns, which is Amir, he is a Pashtun and he is privileged. His father is very wealthy and rich, and Hassan is his friend, but he's also the son of the servant of Amir's father. Amir lives in this beautiful, amazing house and he's very privileged. He goes to school. Hassan is illiterate and he lives in the back garden of Amir's house. He's also Amir's servant, so he does everything for Amir. However, they grow up as friends. Amir has a lot of internalized discrimination towards Hassan and Hazaras in general. He doesn't consider Hassan as his friend, even though Hassan has never been anything other than his friend, and Hassan is such a beautiful, kind soul who's been nothing but devoted and kind towards Amir his entire life, even though Amir clearly discriminates against him and doesn't even really like him. One day, I won't spoil what happens, but one day a very tragic incident occurs that Amir, he is faced with a scenario where he can do something brave and he can save his friend, but he doesn't. He runs away from cowardice. It made me so fucking angry because, you know, Hassan has never been anything but kind to him and stood up for him and defended him, and this one chance that he needed Amir to do the same, Amir didn't do it and he ran away, and it's just completely devastating. And basically after this, the war happens. Amir has to immigrate with his father to America. It also made me sad to learn about this ethnic minority discrimination in Afghanistan that I didn't even know about, and it just made me think that every single country, every single community in this whole world will always discriminate against ethnic minorities, and there's so many conflicts that I don't even know about, and it's just sad. 100% recommend this book. It was simply incredible. You should read it. Moving on. I think 2 weeks ago I went to Belfast for a weekend and I met up with friends that I hadn't seen in a long time, which was really great. And we ended up walking into a Oxfam secondhand bookshop where I bought this book. Now, I completely judged this book by a cover. I was just like, wow, that is such a cool cover. I love it. So I bought it. It was £3 and I had never heard of this author, Saiko Matsumo, Tokyo Express, but I decided to give it a go. And I thought it was pretty good. It was like quite a nice short story of investigative, like, procedural drama. So the premise is that there is a double suicide on a beach. It seems like it's a double suicide. Everything points to it being a double suicide, like a love suicide. Two lovers committed suicide together. Our main guy, our detective, thinks that something is fishy, so he uncovers this whole mystery. It's written very simply, like, it's pretty tactical. The whole story is based on train timetables, which is why it's called Tokyo Express, and time's not adding up. So it was really smart. Like, I really enjoyed it, but it was pretty technical and I'm really bad at numbers, so I kind of got lost. Like, I couldn't follow the investigation as like the detective was doing it. I was kind of just like always one step behind because I kept mixing up the dates and stuff. I do recommend. It was like a nice police procedural and I did enjoy it. Lastly, I want to talk about this book, which I actually haven't finished. I bought it in the exact same shop, and this one is called Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell, and I picked it up because of the cover. Look at that. It was also only £2. Anything by George Orwell is worth reading. It is about the Spanish Civil War. He actually fought on the front of the Spanish Civil War, which I didn't know. So far he's just talking about his experience. It's a non-fiction and I haven't finished it. I am this far in, but so far what sticks out to me, he talks about the banality of war, like how boring it is and how disgusting it is and resources are missing. It's not really like an action piece where, you know, people are getting blown up and all. It's kind of just men waiting in trenches for the war to begin, and how pointless it really seemed. Obviously the Civil War wasn't pointless, but I'm just talking about war itself, the act of like men killing each other. I'm excited to finish it, and I'll tell you guys what I think about it, I guess, in the next video if I do something like this again. Now, lastly, I want to talk about Janet McCurdy's Hoffa's Age, which I also haven't finished, but I did start reading it. Actually, I'm not reading it. I'm listening to an audiobook, and I'm only doing this because I found it for free on Spotify because I have Spotify Premium, and the book just comes with it, which I was just like, okay, I'll give it a go. So I've been listening to it on my daily walks. Here are my opinions. It is my first time reading an audiobook, And honestly, I don't know if I'm a big fan. I feel like my mind just slips away and then I don't even realize that I'm listening to something, and then I lose half of the story, so I have to like focus back in. I feel like reading is easier for me because I'm actively doing something, so I have to focus and read, whereas listening, my mind just drifts and then I lose the story. The premise is interesting. It's this 17-year-old girl, Waldo, whose life is very depressing and she's very upset and sad and angry at the world, and she fancies her teacher, and they do end up having a relationship. This is where I'm at the book. They are having a relationship, like a sexual one as well. Obviously, it's gonna talk about, I hope, pedophilia, because she is 17 and he's like 30. She is half his age, and it's gonna divulge into that, hopefully, and I'm really curious to see how it ends. However, I don't really like the atmosphere of the novel. It's really depressing and just gross and gritty and sarcastic and sad. She's just a 17-year-old angsty teenager. Like, her life is horrible. Like, she has been dealt a set of shitty cards. But it's just such a, like, yeah, you know, this kind of story that drags you down. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. Also, I think it's going to be a critique on consumerism, because she's always talking about lists. This girl is addicted to online shopping, so she's always listing off things that she's buying. I'm not enjoying it, you know? Like, I can appreciate the writing behind it. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a good critique. But I don't really want to read about that, you know what I mean? So I think it's just not the book for me. Also, I find it really hard to get into stories and movies that center high schoolers, like people in secondary school. Maybe because I am so young and I have recently finished high school that I just don't want to be in that headspace again. It just automatically puts me off a book. So this has nothing to do with Jenna McCurdy's writing style. I haven't read her memoir, but I think I want to. I've heard good things about this story. We're gonna see. I'm gonna finish listening to it, but so far these are my impressions. That's my take on all of these books so far. All the books I've read this month, except for this one, obviously. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye!